Good morning, everyone. It is another nice and calm morning here in Zion. Blue skies and no clouds right now, but there's supposed to be a chance of clouds a little later today. And so to have the really nice, warm, reflected light I like to work with, it's really important to have no clouds. So it means that this morning I may have some potential to shoot some photos. So I've returned to an area not far from where I was yesterday. So I was sitting on that scene for several hours yesterday. And I'd occasionally walk away from my camera, then wander around a little bit. And it was then that I found this area over here, which might not look like much right now, but I think it has a lot of potential. So it's this grove of dead pine trees set against some sandstone. And there's a lot of variety in this area. And as the sun comes up, it's going to illuminate these walls back behind me over here, which is going to put some nice, soft, reflected light into the shadows over here. And it's a pretty long-lasting glow. So I came here a little bit after sunrise just to scope things out and see if I can find a composition. And one of the tools I use for that is this, the view catcher. So it's just a very simple setup. Let me just open it up here. So you just slide this open to correspond to the aspect ratio you're working with. And it just allows you to put a rectangle on the scene. And it's really helpful for evaluating a scene just to see how it's going to look without having to pull a camera out. So I'm gonna see if I can find a composition here, but I'm looking forward to hopefully exposing some film today. And then when it gets a little bit more cloudy toward the afternoon, do some more exploring, some more scouting, but we'll see what I can find. So while wandering around, I found a composition I think is going to work. So I went back to my truck, grabbed my camera, and set up a composition of the scene you see behind me here. And so what I really like are all these dead pine trees. And there are 3 smaller ones on the right side. There's kind of a large one that's leaning, it has a light color to it, and then behind that is a live pine tree back in the kind of centered in the middle of the composition. And then some more dead pine trees off to the left. And at the foot of the trees, there's some remnants of fall color, which has just the right amount of color to make a little bit of a somber look to it, yet at the same time, there's going to be some nice, warm, reflected light. And the light is going to be coming from over there, as well as over there, as well as the hillside here as the sun shifts. So there's a little bit of a glow right now. There's some nice, soft light on there, but it's going to get a little bit better. And I'm keeping an eye on some high clouds off over that way, and just to make sure that they don't build up to be too much, because if they start forming a little bit more, I'll go ahead and take my photo. But I think I'm just going to wait this one out, wait for the light to develop to be even stronger, and then expose some film on this. But this is feels pretty good to find a composition on this very chaotic scene. So let's wait for the really good light. Well, I went ahead and exposed 2 sheets of Pro V100F with and without a warming filter, and a single sheet of Velvia 50. And the light is pretty decent right now. It's a pretty decent glow. But there are clouds that are coming in right now. And I would have preferred to have waited another hour or two for the reflected light to get any stronger. But looking out toward the west, I can see that there's a pretty big bank of high clouds on the way in. And it's already affecting the light a little bit. When photographing with reflected light, you're going to have the dominant warm light's going to come from light bouncing off sandstone or something nearby. And then the other component of the light is the blue light from the sky. And what happens is you have, warm light coming from one direction, cool light coming from another direction. And it really is just really beautiful, very painterly sort of light. And when you have even the smallest of clouds in the sky, it cancels out the blue light because it just dominates over the blue light. And then the warm light is also kind of canceled out by that. So it just really puts a damper on the depth of the light. So with the clouds coming in, I'm glad I was able to expose the film. It feels great to shoot a photo today. Now I'm going to get things packed up, and I think for the rest of the day my plan is just to scout some new areas. And also I should mention that while I was waiting for the light to develop here, I found a really cool subject just over the hill over there, which might be something to shoot on this trip or another trip. So that's why it pays to just stay in the same spot for a few hours and wander around, because you notice all kinds of great things. But I think I'm going to get things packed up, head back, and do a little exploring. Well, it is just past noon, and I brought my camera back to my truck, made myself some lunch, and then grabbed my lightweight scouting pack and decided to venture into a whole new part of the park I've never been to before. And it's kind of interesting to think that, I've been coming here every fall since 2009, yet there's still so many places I've yet to explore. And it seemed like right away I was finding some interesting subjects. So I made mental notes of a couple of them, and depending on how the weather progresses over the next week or so, in the back of my mind, I'm formulating a plan in terms of what subjects are ideal to photograph at different times of the day. Just like where yesterday I was able to photograph 4 different subjects, and today so far I photographed 1, all based on the plan and just putting in the legwork and wandering around. But right now, it is so nice just to relax in the shade of this pine tree, just the scent of the ponderosa pines in the air, and watching the clouds go by. So definitely nice to take a break, because the light's not so great to shoot right now, but the clouds are pretty. So but I'm going to enjoy this little break and then get back to some wandering, and maybe check out a few new areas as well. But I'm very curious what all I'll find. So this is a prime example of cryptobiotic soil. It looks like this kind of dark, crunchy crust, but it's very important not to step on it because it is teeming with life. And if you step on it, it basically allows all the sand underneath it to erode away. And when that happens, all the plants that are back in here, they won't be able to grow anymore. So this is what you'll find in areas that are fairly untouched in the Southwest. But if this was a popular area, I can guarantee that all this would be gone and those plants probably wouldn't even be growing there. So very important not to step on the cryptobiotic soil. So while hiking along, I came across this scene with this absolutely beautiful sandstone. Look at all this behind me. There's even this little toadstool over there with this stripy sandstone base. It's absolutely beautiful. I've just been mesmerized by all of this and just staring at it for the past half hour or so. I'm sure there's some potential for a photo here. I don't see it yet. It's kind of a sensory overload just to see this beautiful. It reminds me of something at South Coyote Buttes. Very, very fragile and very crumbly. You can see how it was all carved, a lot of it by wind. But absolutely beautiful. So this is definitely an area to keep an eye on and see if I can find a composition up here. I'm quite a ways away from the main areas, so it'll be a haul to get the big camera up here, but I'm sure there'll be some nice glows here in the afternoon. But such a wonderful thing to stumble upon. So I find myself sitting at the base of a pine tree again. This time I got a rock to sit on, so it's kind of nice. But I scrambled up to another side canyon, which is one I've never been to before. And I gotta say, this part of the park is pretty wild. There's basically no evidence of people over here, even though I'm not too far away from the road. It's just an area that no one really goes to. So there's some track from sheep and some other stuff along those lines. And I don't really see anything over here necessarily to photograph, but it was definitely interesting to see a different area of the park. But the sky is continuing to fill with clouds, a bit more now than earlier, and toward the west it's getting a little bit milky for the sky. And I haven't quite figured out what I'm going to do next. I still have a fair amount of time today, but I'm thinking about maybe seeing if I can find a vantage point for more of a grand landscapey kind of shot. because if these clouds stick around, then they may very well light up at sunset. And that's the sort of photo I haven't really done here before in Zion. It's a lot more difficult to do than one might think, so we'll see on that. But definitely enjoying my time in the shade here and being serenaded by the crickets. It's like a right on cue. That was good job, cricket. Gotta love Zion. So I figured this would be a great time to channel my inner Nick Carver on this one here. So we'll see how this goes. All right. Yeah. So I found this puzzle here for those that aren't very sheepish. And if you thought that was bad, well, tough luck, because I found this humorous. No, just put the bone down and walk away. Okay. Yeah. It felt great to expose those sheets of film that morning. And I thoroughly enjoyed my afternoon exploring a new area I had never visited before. This is the pattern I settle into on my photography trips. Photographing, exploring, discovering new subjects, then making plans on how to photograph them. Despite being a great subject, I'm not overly satisfied with the photograph of the pine trees. The composition is awkward, but it was the best I could do from that vantage point. This isn't the last you'll see of this subject. I returned to it the following day, this time with a different composition from another perspective. Thanks as always for watching, and we'll see you around next time. If you enjoy this ad-free and clickbait-free content and want to help me live my dream, a voluntary contribution of just $24 a year helps keep my gas tank full and my film freezer stocked. For more information on how to support me and my work, please visit the donation section of my website at benhorn.com/donate. I also have prints in my portfolio box set available on my website. You can find a direct link down below in the show notes. Thanks in advance for your support.